As a film buff, my least favorite question that I get asked quite frequently actually is, what is your favorite movie of all time? Or what is the greatest movie of all time? I think that this question is incredibly unfair. And the reason for that being is because for me, it is nearly impossible to narrow down just one movie and call it the greatest of all time. I have a list of many favorites, that being Terminator 2, The Shining, Pulp Fiction, and Taxi Driver. But 90% of the time, I usually answer that question with The Empire Strikes Back. Even though all the movies I just listed are practically tied in my mind, the reason why Empire gets the edge is because it is the most personal out of all of those movies. I vividly remember watching this movie for the first time in 5th grade and being blown away. I believe that this is the first time in my life where I truly appreciated a film. It was the first time that I saw film as an art form and not just a form of entertainment. Before this point, I didn't really think movies were all that deep. I just saw them as mindless entertainment. I didn't really know the difference between a good movie and a bad movie, but as soon as I saw The Empire Strikes Back, I was able to draw that line and come to the conclusion that this movie is the definition of a masterpiece. After seeing The Empire Strikes Back for the first time, I never watched movies the same way again. I finally looked at movies as an art form, and even though I did get more critical towards movies, I grew a much greater appreciation for them. The biggest impact that this movie made on me was it inspired me to make movies on my own, to make my very own movies. After seeing this movie, I wanted to get a group of friends together and we would just play lightsabers. It probably would have turned out being terrible. I'm kind of happy it didn't get made because I didn't have the editing software, but I still had that drive to be creative and make movies. And I think that this movie is responsible for lighting that spark. I've hyped the hell out of this movie, and you're probably wondering why I'm stating all these bold claims about this movie. I mean, if you've seen it, you probably agree with me, but, if you haven't, then seriously, click off this video and watch The Empire Strikes Back. I'm not even going to give you a timestamp so you can get my spoiler-free thoughts. Just get off my video and watch this movie. This movie managed to achieve the impossible. It managed to trump the original Star Wars, and that is almost impossible. The original Star Wars is a timeless classic, and it is almost undefeatable. This movie managed to trump that movie in every single conceivable way. The Empire Strikes Back manages to expand the Star Wars universe even more and make it so much more interesting. All these individual worlds are just so fascinating to me. And The Empire Strikes Back is the reason why I am so obsessed with every single individual nook and cranny of the Star Wars universe. The set design in this movie is also breathtaking. Every single planet just feels so authentic. There's not a single shot in this movie that looks like it was shot on a set. Everything feels so extraterrestrial. One thing that this movie did better than the original was build our main characters even more. Our main trio, Luke, Han, and Leia, are better than they have ever been. Even though Luke is more powerful in this movie, he is now more flawed and vulnerable. And that is what ends up being his downfall by the end of this movie. This movie beats Luke down to his core, and this aspect of the movie I find so interesting. This movie makes the decision to pair up Han and Leia, and at the beginning of this film, they are constantly bickering, as they were in the first movie. But as this movie goes on, they actually form a very unexpected romance. And this aspect of the movie doesn't feel forced or tacked on. It feels both natural and believable. And let's just be honest, Han and Leia are just adorable. Also, the scene where C-3PO barges in at the absolute worst time is just classic. Usually romance bores me in movies, but here it just works so well. All the pieces just click. It mixes so well into the action and the drama. This movie provides almost every single genre known to man, whether that be sci-fi, action, drama, romance, even a little bit of Western. This movie is truly made for everybody. This film is also easily the funniest entry in the Star Wars saga. Like, moments like this.
Are you stuck up, half-witted, scruffy-looking nerve herder?
Who's scruffy looking?
Just had me rolling on the floor. I have seen this movie so many times, and the jokes always land every single time. But the character that got the biggest upgrade in this movie was Darth Vader. He is just such a badass in this movie. He is completely unleashed. He's killing his own guys left and right. And it is such a treat to see on screen. The part where he chokes that admiral with his mind still leaves me utterly speechless to this day. This movie is called The Empire Strikes Back for a very good reason. Even though their greatest weapon has been destroyed, the Empire still has one hell of a grasp on the rebels, and they strike back. Our heroes lose at the end of this movie. Evil wins. And that is such a ballsy route to take this movie. This movie also introduces some new characters, and every single one of them are engraved in pop culture to this day, especially Yoda. I just love how this movie builds up Master Yoda to be this big, hulking figure who's this great warrior. But he ends up being a short little wrinkly green alien. I just love how this movie manages to subvert all expectation. When it comes to power level, I just love how Yoda makes Luke feel so insignificant and stupid. Throughout this whole movie, Yoda makes Luke feel stupid and powerless. And it is honestly hilarious to watch. Yoda is such a charming and funny little creature. He is probably the funniest character in this movie, though. The scene where Yoda's hitting R2-D2 with the stick is just classic. It manages to get a good laugh out of me every time I watch this movie. But his character isn't only comic relief. He is the literal embodiment of all of Luke's flaws, and he exposes all of it to the audience, and that is why this movie is so suspenseful, because once Luke abandons Yoda, you know what's gonna happen. You know that Luke is gonna fail. The work that Jim Henson did on Yoda is honestly amazing. He is probably the only man who has ever properly really brought Yoda to life. Still to this day, Yoda looks so real, so tangible. I would easily take Yoda in this movie over the crappy CGI version in the prequels. Billy D. Williams also gives an excellent performance as Lando. His character is just so funny and entertaining. Though, I just love how this movie makes you feel torn on his character. He is a smuggler like Han, but he doesn't really have as good of a moral compass. But still, a part of you does trust him at the same time. Though, when Lando portrays our main characters, You feel that sense of betrayal. Though Lando does go on a redemption arc, and none of this feels forced or rushed or tacked on. Everything feels natural. Now, let's talk about what might be the best ending in cinematic history. But let's start off in the scene where Han gets frozen in carbonite. This scene still packs an emotional punch, and hearing Chewbacca's various cries still is super heartbreaking to watch to this very day. Now let's talk about probably the best scene in all of movies, and easily the best scene in all of Star Wars. The duel between Luke and Vader on Bespin. I just love the shot where Luke and Vader are igniting their lightsabers, and the only thing that is visible is their silhouettes. I also love the blue and orange color palette. It makes everything look so ominous. Obviously, I need to talk about the I Am Your Father twist, but I'm not going to cover it much here because the internet has already beaten this scene to death. Though I will say how I love that this movie managed to flip the entire Star Wars saga on its head. This scene introduced themes to the Star Wars saga like family and corruption. Now the Star Wars saga isn't only about the battle between good and evil. The ending to this movie is so powerful. That last shot communicates so much. Evil has won, though the war isn't over. The good guys still have time to be triumphant in the end. And I just love that bittersweet message at the end of this movie. This video is getting on the long side, so I really only have time to talk about one more thing, and that is John Williams' amazing score. John Williams knocked it out of the park again with his score in this movie. In fact, I think that this is possibly his best work. His score just adds so much emotion to every single scene, whether that be the magic to the asteroid field scene, or the absolute threatening, ominous tone to the Imperial March. That score just adds so much to Vader's character, and it makes him feel so much more threatening. And that is the power of the great John Williams. Overall, The Empire Strikes Back isn't only the best Star Wars movie ever made, it is possibly the best movie ever made. And because of that, The Empire Strikes Back gets an A+. Wait. Something doesn't feel right, okay? Let me try this again. The Empire Strikes Back gets an S. The Empire Strikes Back absolutely deserves getting a whole new grade for it. I mean, for the longest time, A+ has been the highest grade, but now I'm introducing S tier, which is for movies that are not only masterpieces, but they have to touch me on an emotional level, and they have to make a personal impact on my life. There are only about, let's say, 10 of these movies that exist, so you're probably not going to see me give this grade a lot. I hope you enjoyed my review of The Empire Strikes Back. And if you did, make sure to give this video a like. And if you want more content like this, hit the subscribe button and ring the bell notification so you can be notified every time I upload a new video. And shout out to Weird Al and Craig Federici.
How cool is that?